All right, welcome to the Explainer. So, I want you to just forget everything you think you know about physics for a minute. Today, we're diving headfirst into the twofold Atlantis. This is a place where philosophy isn't some abstract idea you debate. No, here it's a weapon. It's a reality where ideas literally, physically, shape the entire universe. Okay, so to really get your head around the underworld ocean, you've got to lock onto this one core idea. Belief is power. I mean that literally. The very fabric of this reality, it's woven from the clashing worldviews of these incredible beings. Their struggle isn't just a fight, it's what physically forges the world around them, moment by moment.
So, let's get into it. At the very heart of this whole thing is this epic, fundamental struggle. It's a clash between two incredibly powerful entities, and they're basically the ultimate expressions of order and chaos. So, first up, let's talk about Glaucus. This guy is a being of pure, raw intellect, the hypercerebral architect. He genuinely believes that his mind, what he calls his absolute I, is the only thing holding the entire ocean together, stopping it from just collapsing into total mindless chaos. You see, he doesn't think of himself as just a king. Oh no, he sees himself as the very source of reality itself.
And he takes that belief to a whole other level. He literally sees his own consciousness as a divine law, something physically etched into the water itself. So when he uses his phase shift sorcery, that's not magic in his eyes. To him, that's the fundamental rulebook of reality. And he just scoffs at the idea that something like burning water could ever dissolve the pure divine logic that he represents. And then, on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, you've got the shadow. This is a Mephistophelian spirit of just pure negation. Think about it like this. If Glaucus is the absolute I, the center of everything, the shadow is the eternal non-I. It's that silent, creeping, empty void that promises to just swallow every single one of those divine thoughts whole. And the shadow's perspective? It's brutal. He'd tell you that all of Glaucus's power, all his high and mighty absolute idealism, it's just a fancy gilded cage. A cage built to hide a deep, primal terror of the blank page, of nothingness. See, for the shadow, any kind of order is just temporary. It's all destined to dissolve back into the true, natural state of the deep, what he calls hydronihilism. So you see the deadlock, right? This is the crucial part. On one side, you've got absolute idealism, this grand attempt to master all of reality with pure intellect. And on the other, you've got hydronihilism, the absolute certainty that any system of logic, no matter how perfect, already has the seeds of its own destruction baked right in. And this whole dynamic leads us to this really key concept called the Anstoss. See, the shadow isn't just some random enemy for Glaucus to fight. He's a necessary obstacle. Now, from Glaucus's point of view, the shadow is just this inferior little tool he uses for his own divine self-realization. But here's the twist. It's the very existence of this void, this nothingness, that gives Glaucus's struggle for order its meaning. It defines him, even as it constantly threatens to wipe him out. Okay, so we've got the Philosopher Kings debating reality. Now let's throw a wrench in the works. A new player enters the game, and this one just scoffs at all their high-minded philosophy. Because this isn't another philosopher, no, this is a predator. Meet the captain. He doesn't show up to think or debate. He shows up as a force of pure, raw consumption. He even calls himself the accident of logic. And this whole grand philosophical war, to him, it's just a feast. A big buffet where he gets to scoop up and harvest all the magical runoff from their fighting. And his whole motivation is perfectly summed up by this idea of the drought within the deep. But get this, that's not some philosophical concept. It's a physical, biological need. A deep, insatiable thirst to literally drain his rivals dry of their power, their water, their very essence. Yeah, so he couldn't care less about their debate. For the captain, the only thing that's real, the only truth, is his brass astrolabe. It's a tool for plundering his kingdom, the Sargasso Rift. And Glaucus's so-called divine lattice, he sees it not as some cosmic law, but as just a digital grid, a system that's ripe for his own chaos water to seep in and rot from the inside out. But wait, it gets even more complicated. Just when you think you've got the players figured out, another force emerges. And this one looks at all the others, the king, the shadow, and the parasite, and just calls them all obsolete ghosts. This is the Sea Stormer.
And he doesn't just play the game, he completely changes the rules. He's not here to argue a point of view, he's here to invoke ancient primordial powers. We're talking Hades, Lucifer, Samyaza. These are the OG rebels who have apparently grown tired of this back-and-forth deadlock. So what he represents is a totally new kind of power. He's not just order, and he's not just chaos. He's described as a deliberate intellectual intuition that actually combines both. He takes the king's logic and fuses it with the shadow's malice. And what comes out of that synthesis? A final, inescapable truth for everyone: the grave.
And the way he operates is on a whole different level. He's wielding rune magic and something called the Void Blight. And these things, they don't just mess with matter, they manipulate destiny itself. We're talking about a power that consumes time and distance, which, when you think about it, makes Glaucus's divine thought and the captain's physical hunger seem, well, completely irrelevant.
Okay, wow. So what does all this mean? Where does this leave us? Let's take a step back and look at how this entire insane conflict is actually a literal physical manifestation of some classic philosophical principles.
It's incredible, right? This whole war perfectly mirrors a classic philosophical dialectic. First, you have the thesis. That's Glaucus, asserting his absolute I. Then you get the antithesis, the shadow, who comes in and negates it with the non-I. And what happens when they clash? You get the synthesis, the sea stormer, who comes along and combines and transcends both of them to create a totally new final reality. So the big takeaway here, the thing you really need to remember, is that in the underworld ocean, mythology and philosophy aren't separate things. They've completely merged. Every single one of these characters is a personified law of nature. And their battle for dominance, it's not a debate club. It is the very force that is forging and reforging their world in real time. Which leaves us with one last big, provocative question to chew on. In a universe literally built from belief, where your will becomes reality, what is the ultimate reality? Is it the structured, brilliant thought that builds everything up? Is it the empty, silent void that consumes it all? Or is it the quiet grave, the final synthesis that brings them both into an eternal, silent peace?